with Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
It was an album that redefined popular music and the Beatles as a band. A musical experiment no one had ever heard before. Not just a series of catchy tunes, but a concept album following one theme. The cover art made almost as much of a splash as the songs, colorful and fanciful, revealing a Canadian connection. An Ontario Provincial Police badge, the same one worn by officers today, sewn onto Paul McCartney's jacket.
I think it's a nod to Canadian Beatles fans, and there were so many hundreds of thousands of Canadian Beatle fans in the 60s, and any one of them could have sent Paul McCartney the badge. And
plenty have made the claim. The Beatles came to Canada 3 times, but it was the first visit in 1964 that offered OPP officer Corporal Glenn Hickinbottom a chance to meet the Fab Four. He worked security for the band and apparently gave them 4 OPP badges. 3 years later, an OPP badge showed up on the now iconic album.
It was a gift, a friendly gift. He didn't have to do it, but he wanted to say thank you to the Beatles because he had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. They were both Beatles fans.
There are other stories, too, about the real-life Sergeant Pepper, supposedly Canadian OPP officer Sergeant Randall Pepper, who also worked security for the Beatles during a Toronto visit. But when the album bearing his name came out a few years later, his granddaughter says he wasn't impressed.
He didn't think too much. Of course, my mother and my uncle thought it was fantastic, but my grandmother and my grandfather just kind of poo-pooed it and just thought it was kind of silly.
McCartney's own version of the story is different. In an interview, he said he misheard someone say Salt and Pepper as Sergeant Pepper, and it stuck. Whatever the truth, it doesn't diminish the impact of a beloved album still delighting and mystifying fans 50 years on. Stephanie Van Kampen, CBC News, Toronto.